recording.
Alrighty.
And let's start cast.
So now is the time to do something more interactive, and this is actually one of the parts of this job that I like the most, like doing things and see how they interact with like users' behavior. So I guess like we can do that example in the new pen. So we're gonna work a little bit with CSS transitions. So I don't know if you heard of it, but you can actually do animations in CSS, and they can get pretty complex, or they can be very simplistic. So we can start, I think, with the button. So like if it says something like "Hello World" or whatever, then it's cool. So what I wanted to show you today is like how we can give like this nice touch of interaction for the user. So like I think we can start with just this part with like some background, some border. So like if we just make the button a bit like less like a native element, but more like a regular thing that you'd see on the web.
Ah, damn it.
Then we'll be able to actually like give it a little bit more of life. And I think you missed the semicolon.
Yeah, you're right. Oh. Top tip, don't look on the projector because it's delayed. So
Yeah, that's pretty confusing. Font weight bold, line height 1. Some padding of like 0.7 rem into 2 rem. And then text transform uppercase. And then if we just add the body text align center, so it centers.
What did I miss?
Here, body text align center.
Ah, like that. Okay.
So basically, this is your regular button, right? And first of all, what we could possibly do is to give it life by giving it a hover class. So who has used hover classes or pseudo classes before? One person, 2, 3, 4. Okay, most of you. So for the ones that haven't heard of, hover pseudo class is basically a way to say like what should happen when you mouse over the element. So if we do button hover, and then we can say
this is the pseudo class element. So you use a colon, and then you have like some special functionalities. Do you remember that I showed you the end child? So you can do like again, look on my own display. Button end child even. You don't have to type this stuff. I'm just showing some stuff. And then you can do like background color red, and then if you have like every second button will be red. I hope, yeah. Oops. More buttons. And every second button is red. So that was just like a recap of pseudo classes that they have like all kind of different cool features. But this feature, this pseudo class here is a hover, so that's like whenever we have our mouse over the button, something will happen.
So you can give it a background of whatever. You can give it green or blue or yeah, we could do that too.
Boom, now it's green. And let's do the color white.
Yeah, we can actually do the inverse. So we can do the black. It's gonna look interesting with the transition. So if you give it a background color black, then we'll see what's gonna happen when it comes to transition. Okay, so like now when you hover it, it's gonna invert, and we can also maybe add. So it's like normally you wouldn't do it, but just for the sake of showing you the changes, if you do the transform scale 1.2, so it gets all bigger. This is one of the also like interesting CSS properties that it can actually scale elements. So now when you hover over the elements, the whole thing is gonna get a little bit bigger, right?
Maybe exaggerate it a little bit just to make sure everyone can. Boom.
Yeah.
But that's maybe a little crazy.
So as you can see, it has this choppy, jumpy effect. And one thing is that we can transform our elements, move them on the screen and so on, but we also can actually give or animate those elements. And we do that with CSS transition. So first of all, if we say like transition property in the button hover, and we just set it to all for now. And then duration, 1 second. For now, that's it. Then, when we actually hover over, it's gonna start this whole transition thing, and you'll see it.
Are you ready?
Wow.
Wow.
But as you can see here, now it's getting jumpy and choppy because when you hover over, the animation seems to be working. But when you hover out, it actually does this step 0, 1 kind of change, and it doesn't animate back. So in order to fix that, we also need to say that the original button needs to have the transition. And now when I think about it, maybe we can
can you remove the other one?
Yeah.
Because you see,
It's also transition duration, I think needs to be set.
both of them? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
And maybe you can delete that.
Yeah.
So now when you hover out, this actually gonna.
Yeah. And since all these rules here, up here, they affect what's going on down here as well. So this hover one is just adding on top of this. We can remove these two here, and we'll have the same behavior still.
So now the thing is, you learned how to make those transitions. So rule of thumb is, don't do it because you can. And like this is such a classic. Everybody goes through it. Like there's a button. Everybody say, "Oh, I'm gonna just animate it and then like change colors to make it bigger and so on." No, it's got to like serve the purpose, right? And the thing is that, as you can see here, there's a transition property. It says all. So basically, all your properties, if you change them, like let's try border maybe. Can we do that and maybe make it green? I don't know. Let's do something ridiculous. So like 10 pixels green or something.
I don't even remember its border color. Is that
Border 3px.
Yeah. Okay, but you just need to do like border, or like if you do border solid 10px green or something.
Yeah.
Then it's gonna actually also add that and animate it, right? So it's gonna actually animate everything that you change. And from here, it opens up a lot of possibilities for any animations in the UI, like when you expand something that it doesn't jump, but it actually makes a continuous movement somewhere, or if you close something so it actually shrinks and so on and so forth.
Just improvise.
Yeah, exactly. You can go like all out.
Oh, why did it jump? It's because the width is not set here, maybe?
Maybe.
Yeah, okay, so how do you set the width here then when it's inline? So it's width initial?
I think isn't it initial by default?
I'm not really sure how to solve that. No? Huh.
Anyway, like
Okay, just to show you, so we set the width to 50%, then it will start out being too wide, but it will work in terms of the animation. I'm not sure how to solve that particular problem.
but you might have seen on some web pages, some interesting animations when it comes to like the background. Sometimes there's like something going on in the background, some like bubbles moving, or iPhone or Apple had this like when you scroll that the phone would disassemble and assemble, and you could all do with transitions and something like keyframe animation. But this is something that I would encourage you to also Google. If you are interested in animations, and this is not something that's usually well, developers do that, but maybe this is a little bit of a sidetrack of what we're supposed to do. Because, yeah.
I think this way of doing animation is kind of like the most cost-effective one to learn, because there are different ways you can do animations. You can also like do animations in using JavaScript, where you can of course do all kind of crazy complicated things. You can do something related to this, which is keyframes, which is what Jacob is just mentioning now, and that's like you can set. Again, you can just use this technique to do more complicated things. But start out here, because the really cool thing is this is called CSS transitions, and a really cool thing is that this is actually it's hardware accelerated. So that means that your computer is able to leverage the graphics processor in the computer, so it won't take up so much CPU on your computer. Whereas if you do JavaScript, it generally won't be hardware accelerated, so it will take up more resources on the computer, and you can easily get into a situation where you build a really heavy website. And using these things, you can do like the basic things that you will probably have to do in the beginning. And then if at one point you need to do some really complicated stuff, that's where you can start looking into the other things.
And also, like by default, I'd say that like start without the transitions at all. So as we've seen before, like it's also good enough to have like this button to just like invert the colors. That was enough to like indicate that there is a hover action, right?
This works.
Yeah. Well, maybe without the border, like and all this. But if you get rid of the border, you could argue maybe the scale, because this is also pretty stupid.
Yeah.
But like without that, and if you hover and like move around, this is
just had to say.
Oh yeah, exactly. So now it's like a common thing that you would see, on the web. And then if you are working with somebody that wants to actually convey a certain message, or where the user experience journey somehow is designed to be a bit smoother and so on, then you can start actually bringing on board all those techniques, right?
But I would say once you get to do like your final project, we'll have like it will be a pretty hard task to complete. You'll have to do a lot of stuff, and in that case, it's also very much a matter of prioritizing your time. And if you come back with a product that can do like 10 or 15% of what we ask you to do, but it has awesome animations, then you're going to fail the project, because that's not what it's about. It's not functional. It's not really serving a purpose besides, of course, having like an aesthetic effect, and that can be really important to have that aesthetic effect. But it's just like, generally speaking, to like build the product, you have to build something that's functional before you build something that's like has all those extra details in there. So.
Yep. But that being said, keep in mind that this is possible, right? And if you go for this nice user experience, you have tools to utilize.
Yeah. So the next thing I want to show you is something that I hope will help you with your homework. It's I had an article somewhere. Do I have it open here? No, I don't think so. It's commonly known as the checkbox hack. So what is that? This article shows some examples what you can use it for. So we press a button and we change something on the page. And this is usually something that you would use JavaScript to do. But the cool thing is that some smart guy sometime somewhere, I don't know who invented this, who got this idea, but somehow someone figured out that you can actually use checkboxes to do what I would call state, because we'll cover that a lot later, but an application has state, so that means like your application could be in a red state or in a green state, like we just saw it before. So it's about like saving the current mode, the current status of your application. And that's something that's incredibly hard to do if you only have HTML and CSS, but it's something that we use a lot in JavaScript. But it can actually be done to a limited degree when you use this hack. So down here we have, okay, so it's just a link to another article where I hope there's a demo somewhere. View demo. So here we actually have an example using this hack to do like a tab navigation, something you see all over the place on the web. And this one is not using JavaScript. Normally you would have to use JavaScript to do these kind of things. But this one is done entirely in CSS. So let's figure out how it works. I think we'll head back to the first article again. I mean, let's just be maybe. No, that was not in CodePen. I think I'm just going to be lazy to save some time, so I'm just going to copy this stuff into CodePen. And then I'll explain you why it works. So we take the markup here, and we take the CSS. And it's kind of like, why didn't we get the button to look like a button? Yeah, I guess. So the code that they gave us was actually not the code that was in the demo. Whatever. It works good enough for us, right? So I can press this thing and this thing changes. Does anyone have an idea how that might be done?
There is a hint on the screen already.
Checkbox.
Yes.
Yeah.
Why?
Because when you click the checkbox, for example, initially you will have it doesn't have a check on it.
Mm-hmm.
It's in off state.
Yeah.
And then when you check it,
Exactly.
Let's try and look for that.
turn on and off.
Yeah.
Have a look here. So here we have a rule, a CSS rule, and you can see it's something about changing to red. Okay, and that's what happens here, right?
Yeah.
We are selecting something of the type checkbox, and then there's this is a pseudo class again. So the pseudo class tells us that, or this part here tells us that when you see an input element and that input element has the type checkbox, you remember earlier today we had this distinction between two classes inside each other, and then when you remove the space between them, it's like both things has to apply, right? So this would be to look for something with the checkbox type set inside an input element. But if we remove that space, it means we're looking for input elements that also has the type set to checkbox, right? And since there's not a space here, it means that it also has to have the pseudo class that's checked. That's a special behavior that only works for checkboxes. So this rule here, it just tells us look for checkboxes that are checked. That's what it does. And then this one, anyone knows what that does? Mm-hmm.
Opposite.
Good thing that we had that amazing article from before, right? Let's go and find it again. Top 30 CSS selectors. And then let's search on that page. Not that one. It should be explained separately somewhere. There's probably... There it is. Okay. So this is called the sibling combinator. And they tell us that it's similar to x plus y. So let's just maybe figure out what that one does first. And this one is called the adjacent selector. This one will select only the element that is immediately preceded by the former element. In this case, only the first paragraph after each UL have red text. So there's a demo here. So let's try that out. Okay, I was expecting like a code pen or something like that, but apparently that's not. So here you can see that they have a rule where you have to find a UL element that's there and then apply this styling to the adjacent P element. So meaning the P element right after a UL should be red. So if I try like, alright, I think I can do like this even.
I think you can do that.
Yeah, but no, apparently I can't.
No? Yeah, that's weird.
I thought I could. So we'll just do like that. So I just added another P element here after the UL, and you can see the rule only affects the first element, right? That's not a surprise because that's what they just told us in the description. So this one will select only the element that is immediately preceded. Okay, cool. So let's get back to this one. This is the sibling combinator. So this one will select the first element that is immediately preceded by the former selector. Okay, that got a little bit complicated. So while an adjacent selector, that's the one that we just covered, will only select the first element that is immediately preceded by the former selector, this one is more generalized. It will select referring to example above any P elements along as long as they follow a URL. Okay, if it still sounds a little complicated, let's try out the demo. So you can see that now we have the UL and we have multiple P elements after the UL, and you can see all of them are red now. I think we can go in here and change that one back to a plus, and now you see only the first one is selected. And notice that these guys, these P elements, they're not inside the UL element. They are placed after on the same level. That's why it's called a sibling selector. These are siblings, you know, like sisters and brothers and stuff like that. It's not children. This one in here is children, right? And the children selector, do you remember what that looked like? No, not that, because that's a pseudo class that you use together with children. But if you want to select a
space and then inside there.
exactly, that's the space one. So let's refer back to this one and have a look. Here it is. Okay, so it's actually not called child, it's called descendant selector. But that's what it does. So if you have an A that's inside an LI, then it will be selected by this rule here. And that's probably the one that you use most of the time. So it was just pretty long explanation to make sure that you understand what that one is doing here. So this means that if you have a div that's placed right next to a checkbox, then that div will turn red. Okay, let's have a look up here. We have a checkbox here, and we have a div that's right next to the checkbox. Cool. So something strange here because I don't actually see a checkbox, right? So yeah, that's the thing. They changed something here. So what they actually did here is that if we do like that, and if we do like that, I think now we get the checkbox back. But the interesting thing here, I'll just move it like that maybe, so we can see. So it's
Maybe change the background.
yeah, that's maybe not so important because what I want to show you is that this one do something. That's a label, right? And you remember before we showed you that if you press the label, you can jump to that field. If you press the label of a checkbox, it will check the checkbox. So the thing here is that if you want to create a button, something that looks like a button, and you want to use this trick, then you just use the label as a button, and then you place the checkbox off screen, and you can do that by setting the absolute position and then do something like that. Now Now suddenly the checkbox again is some way 2 kilometers off screen in the top left corner, way out of where we can see it. But the label is still where we can see it, so we can interact with the label. And right now it's a little bit weird just pressing some random text there and having some behavior there. But we could do like something like label, and then we can do like background color, and we can make it, let's do blue and do like padding 20 pixels maybe. Now it starts to look more like a button, right?
Cursor pointer.
Oh yeah, that's a good idea. So notice here that nothing happens when I hover over this one, but if I do cursor pointer and let's save, I guess. Now it changes to this little hand that indicates that this is something they can press. And okay, right now this one is placed a little bit annoying in terms of that one there, but I think I will just do like actually, I think if I just do a display block, inline block maybe. Yeah, that looks more right. And then we can do like margin button 20 pixels. Yeah, so now this kind of looks like a button, right? And we could even do like label hover, and we could do like background color, and then do like, I don't know if you can do dark blue. Yeah, you can. So now this feels like a button, right? But it's not a button. It's actually a checkbox label. So this technique, I just say the one. Example.
But don't you think if we follow the same technique, same hack, we can use the option in case it's also selected?
Well, I don't understand.
We also have the same kind of behavior if an option is selected.
You mean the radio button?
Select box, and then we have options. To select the country.
Oh, the select.
Can
You
you
could
do
do
pseudo
that.
classes on that one?
You could.
Because what you need is
Oh no, because that's one level deeper, I guess. Because the
what you
options-
need is this one, and I don't think you can specify a particular option, because then you have like multiple options.
Well,
I was just thinking maybe.
It's a really interesting idea.
and it's not that easy. It's not that hard to test. So feel free and let us know.
Yeah, that's your homework for next time.
Yes.
Cool.
Should we start doing the
Yeah.
what we
I
planned?
just want to round this up by showing you again the. Now I'm lost again. Checkbox. Yeah. Stuff you can do with the checkbox hack. I just want to show you tabs again. So the demo, view demo.
and maybe bring the checkboxes to in the view.
Oh yeah, let's do that.
Yes, that like initially when I tried to understand what's going on back in the day when I learned it, it was
Yeah.
much easier for me to actually.
Okay, so
see.
they actually use the radio button here.
Oh, it's better. Can we
Uh,
somehow? Oh, it's just display none. So maybe I'll just display block. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
See,
that's a cool part too. That's like actually what you like. What's going on here is just like 3 radio buttons. So you're like essentially they're just hidden, like with display none. But in reality, they're there. So like you don't see it, but you're actually selecting.
and this is the rule that that leverages that. Have you seen set index before?
Yeah.
Sorry,
Set index.
Z-index, yes.
So set index is a little bit like if any of you try to use Photoshop or another image editing program, you have layers, and you can put these layers in front of each other to decide what you will see. And set index, it's kind of like the higher the index, things with a higher index will go on top of things with a lower index. Although you have to note that you have to have set position to either absolute or relative. If you don't set position, set index won't work. And there are some limitations in terms of how things are placed in the DOM, where set index, those positions will be kind of like mess a little bit with the set index thing, but it's just that's how it's implemented in the browsers. So set index is something I try to avoid using it, but sometimes you need it. So.
Yep. I think that maybe you can create a folder on your desktop and like actually try to live code like and download that library.
Yeah, let's do that. Okay.
Yeah.
So what we're going to do now is actually to give you a very gentle introduction to JavaScript. So even though JavaScript is not until next time, we'll just give you a little bit of an outlook so you get an idea what you can do with JavaScript in a very simple way. And please try to build this with me. So I'm just going to go to my desktop. You can do it in normal way or in terminal, whatever you prefer. And I'm going to create a folder. What should we call it?
I'm just gonna upload. Can you just go to Slack so it quickly shows? So we just show what we are actually trying to achieve now, and I'm putting it into mentors, which wasn't the idea.
Okay, but we're calling it what, tab navigation?
Or like we can booking or something because we're going to the booking thing.
Booking example.
So now I'm uploading to the proper place. So if we go to Slack, you'll see what I created for you, and I know that I like creating stuff that you'll spend a lot of time on. That gives me some warm feeling in my heart when I see that. So basic idea is that this is the plan for you for today, for the end of the day. So this is a classic like booking kind of UI. Can we zoom in? Zoom in even on this one? Yeah.
Yeah, there's very zoomed.
That is too much. Then we can go back. So basically on those like booking places, you see those tab navigations where you actually don't go to another page, but you can actually change and switch to a different form. So we'll do that. And in order to do that, you could actually go with the hack exactly shown, and this is up to you if you want to explore that. Or we can do the JavaScript part, which might be a little bit more flexible to my taste and a little bit more semantic too. So let's start with the simple. Okay, and also like sometimes like when I try to understand a problem from like if I don't have a clue how to attack something, I try to like start with the simplest possible thing that I can do. So if we need a tab navigation, right? I wouldn't start by bothering about the form itself at all, right? I just try to actually make the tabs work. And once I see them work, I would gradually start styling them and adding forms and the functionality I'm interested into. Because otherwise, if you start with this and then try to add the navigation around it, you'll just end up confused because there's so many things going on. It's really hard to actually dissect and see that particular thing that you're working on. So if we go to the, I found you something called, what is it called? Simple tabs. So if you just Google pure JS simple tabs or something like that. It should get to GitHub BKM, or maybe just type this address, that might be a little bit faster.
Just
should I just send it?
BK
Yeah.
But yeah, please send the link on Slack for the students.
I'm gonna send it here. So this guy made something called a library. And the library is basically what we in computer science like to call an abstraction.
So basically, it's a box saying like it's gonna do X for you, in this case, tabs, and you don't need to worry about the contents of this. So the guy did all the heavy lifting for you. You just need to apply it, and it's gonna magically work. So this is kind of awesome because this is like saves everybody a lot of time, and like you'll see libraries, in the future a lot, especially when you'll be working with JavaScript. And usually when you go to a GitHub, good project on GitHub and good library, if you scroll down, has a demo, so we can actually see the demo, and maybe we can inspect what's there.
Yeah,
So
let's
see.
try that.
So what is he actually even giving us? So he is giving us a page that doesn't work.
It's a white page.
That's great. And no, there's something. Okay, so if you press on images, maybe there's gonna be something there. Yeah, bacon.
And there's
weird.
a nice hover effect.
And there's a hover effect, yes, and there's a recipe for fried bacon. And yes, that's it. So basically, this is what he's offering us, this kind of functionality, right? So if we go back in here to the library itself, now we should actually have a way or an explanation how do we actually go for this. We can go about this in two ways, using a jQuery, which is another library that you don't need to worry about at all, or pure JavaScript. Since we are for simplicity here, pure sounds like a better option, so let's go down and see the pure JavaScript solution. So the guy, if you go a little bit up.
Yeah, okay, it starts there.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
So the guy actually gave you everything like on the plate because he said like this is your head section, so just copy paste this, and that's it. And then in your HTML, just copy paste that part. And there is some explanation what those tabs do. But like, who would read the explanations? Let's do it, right?
Right.
So let's start by downloading the library.
Yep.
And I would say that we should do like, there's this download as zip on GitHub, so there's no npm or anything, so download zip. This is what you need to do. So I encourage everybody to, like, there's a link on Slack to that library, and everybody just fetch that particular one and unzip.
So yeah, I guess I've just opened it here on the desktop.
Yeah, wait, give it 3 seconds so everybody can actually
You're right.
get that library. It's on Slack. Do you see the link, or have I? Did I also send it to mentors? Yes. Dang, I'm just keep sending stuff on the wrong Slack channel. Sorry for that. It's there now. So I can actually delete it. Do you see it?
Yes.
Okay.
So you have to download.
Yes. So top right, and there's this download as zip.
Yeah, let me just show you the button again.
Yeah.
Clone and download, download as download zip.
Okay. So if we go back to that library, so everybody needs to unzip it. Did you succeed in that? So you should be able to see the folder, like if we go inside maybe, then who doesn't see this yet?
So no show of hands, does that mean you all have it?
Yes.
Very well. Then what we need then is that particular folder. I believe if we go
Yeah.
inside.
And there's actually a demo, maybe just try it out. It's probably the same we just saw.
No, it's not working.
Because
This looks a little bit broken.
yeah, well, let's see if it's gonna even work.
Okay, yeah.
See if the CSS is linked or not.
Yeah, probably something like that.
Let's drag the CSS part maybe out of that folder. Default CSS,
Yeah.
and let's put it to our example.
But do we need to spend time trying to make the example work? We just
No,
watched it.
we just go for the,
Okay.
I guess, for the real deal.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
So-
we just copy it to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, to my folder, right?
No, actually, I found out that the link is not. It says that it's not. Here it's in the CSS folder, but it should be outside. Of
Yeah, but
Yeah.
we're actually gonna apply it ourselves.
Yeah,
so don't
so-
worry about the example.
Yeah, don't
It's
worry
nice.
about it. So I'm imagining we want to have like a JS folder, right? And maybe a CSS folder, right?
Yeah, so this is also like some convention that you might consider in your folders. Like if you have too many files, you might start actually like splitting things into CSS or JavaScript or images or whatever. You know, if you have more than one file or two files or five files, depending on what you feel like.
Mm.
So apparently our CSS folder needs that particular CSS file that we got from our library, so we can actually just drag it in.
And we only need the default, right? We don't
Yeah.
need the demo, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
And then we probably want to have the JS file in the JS folder, right? So let's have a look in this folder. Okay, so there's something here. Notice that we have one that's called just simple tabs pure JS, and we have one that's called the same, but .min. Does anyone have an idea what the difference is?
Minified, what the, like, basically
compressed. Yeah.
Compressed, minified. Let's have a look at the content. So this one is the non-minified, and then this one is the minified. So this one looks like gibberish, really. So why would we ever use that? We can't read it. Well, fortunately the computer can read it, because I promise you the content here does exactly the same as the stuff that's going on here. It's just renamed all of the variable names to something like E or something like T, and it removed all the spaces and stuff like that. And as you can see here, the non-minified is around 1K, so about 1,000 kilobyte, and this 1,000 bytes, and this one is only 620 bytes. So there's around 40% less, takes up 40% less space. So let's just go with the minified one. We're not planning to change anything in there anyway. Cool.
So now we need the index.html in our folder.
Yeah. I'm thinking I'm probably... I'm sorry about that, I still haven't installed Visual Studio Code. But if you open your folder in...
SUDL,
If you open the folder in Visual Studio Code... Oh, it's not working for some reason.
then
Okay.
you can just drag it
Yeah, I know.
over the...
So just take your folder and open it in Visual Studio Code or any other editor you might like. And from here I can create a file. Oh. Index.html. Great
Who
surprise,
doesn't
right?
have the CSS and JavaScript folders and the libraries
I
inside?
just open them so you can... Oh, that looks weird with the comment there. Is that normal?
Which library do you have?
You would just
Okay, that's maybe your...
Sublime text setups for something weird. I haven't seen that before,
So if you
but I
go
think it
back, to the
works. So
Finder,
documentation?
so you should have, no, the Finder, so people know where to put things. So you should have JavaScript folder and CSS folder, right? And default CSS goes into CSS and JavaScript min goes into JS. Are we all cool? Do we have it?
The default CSS?
Mm-hmm.
There's two kinds of CSS.
The default.
Default, we need default. Yes, did you
Yeah,
create
don't take the demo
default
CSS.
or-
Default.
jQuery
Yes.
it has some few
So now we need to
steps.
create a new folder.
Inside them there's two folder,
You can,
Yeah.
different
you can
CSS.
actually.
Yeah, this one and this one, right? Have a look up
You
there.
can just go to Finder.
default.
And you need to take default.
Okay.
Demo is just...
And then
choose it from JS, not
New folder.
jQuery.
Yeah, go for it. Make sure everyone that you take the files from this folder, not from this folder here. Right?
From where?
Yes. Now,
Pure
you
default.
just
Yeah.
here, you can open it. You can create a new folder called CSS.
Which one? The file GS. Which one?
Then
The
min.
second one.
The second one.
And in CSS now, you can delete this. So this you can just hit escape. Just escape. Yeah, just press it. This one.
And the index should be also.
Yes, and then press
Index.
command and
Index HTML is in the root of the
go
project.
up,
Have a look
over,
here.
then this command,
Um,
up arrow,
if I close those two,
up
you have the index and then you have the CSS folder and the JS folder.
and command. So now you need to create a new folder called
Sorry?
JS.
You make the index HTML?
Yeah. Create an empty index.html.
Yes, enter. And now you need to go back, so command and up arrow again. Oh yeah. File, new folder. This one. So now you need to press escape. And then command backspace. And then file. New folder, new. That's something. So you need to press escape again. File, new finder window, so that's the first option. And then downloads. And then open the simple apps. And then pure.js tabs.
So,
drag the window.
whenever you're ready, take the doc type that we used last time.
So open the CSS part.
When you're ready, you can take the doc type from last time and copy it into the index file.
CSS folder.
And I just repeated it on Slack, so you can find it easily.
All CSS goes to CSS folder. Drag it.
Another CSS folder.
You need to do this in just a folder. Yes, I do.
Yeah.
But now you need to go back and drag the CSS and move it to the CSS. Yeah, just select it and then move it to the CSS. Just move it. Press mouse without doing anything. Just press it and move it to CSS. Yes, exactly. And go back on here. Just go one level up, or you can press right button. JS. Then open your Finder again, and drag this pure.js min. Yes. Yes. Okay. Now open this book.
Yeah, you're right. This is just, yeah, we need to look into that. We'll do that in a second.
No. Old CSS.
You can just take that. Take the booking. So if you go up on a folder, so you go back to your Finder, or you can do File, Open, and then
Okay, so how many of you have the files in the right places? So you have one JavaScript file, one style, and the index file? Okay, how many of you have copied the doc type into the index file? Yeah, so there's on Slack we have the standard doc type. I just copied that again. So take that and make sure that's in the index file. Okay, so let's take the index file and now we're just going to correct the small stuff that's like, so let's do like a tabbed layout exercise, something like that. And then you can see the style sheet here does not really match what we need.
if you go to Slack, there's
We have this style sheet in CSS and default, so we need to link that one.
You need to first expand it. Just go.
And then we probably need to have our own style sheet as well. So let's create a new style sheet in here and save it and just call it style.css. So now we have two style files here.
Press your mouse and move down.
And
CSS.
so we have two CSS and we're going to import both of them
And more.
like this.
Yes. And copy. So Command C. Let's go back to Sublime.
This is not side points. Whatever.
Yes.
Is there any order which one should be first?
Save.
Yes. When you import
And then
styles
try to
like this,
follow
the order is very important because.
So we need this CSS. Can you increase the font size? Sorry.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So whenever you include multiple style sheets, the first one, all the styles will be loaded, and then the next one, all the styles will be loaded, and if there are any duplicates, so in the second style sheet there's something that addresses something that was already styled, that one will win. It's always the guy that comes last who wins for some reason. It's not very fair. We also need to link the JS file now, and the commonly recommended practice is to do that in the end of the body, and that has something to do with when things load. And usually we want to load all of our HTML, that's our content, so like all the stuff that people need to understand what's going on your website, we want to load that first because that's the most important thing. And sometimes JavaScript files can grow really big, so it's good practice to try to load them towards the bottom of the document. Let's do a script tag down here, and it's text JavaScript, and then the source will be the /js symbol tabs pure JS min. Make sure to get this title here right. I'm just gonna try to rename it and copy the file instead of renaming. I get it down here, and then I'll just copy that. JS / symbol tabs pure JS.min.js. I just remove some spacing so you can see more of the code on the screen. Let's try to open this in a browser. And I'm just opening it and opening my console, so I'm making sure that we don't have any errors.
I think you need to go back to Sublime for like 1 more minute.
Yeah.
So what you need is those 2 link things and the script.
CSS folder.
Here?
Yeah, there. CSS. And backslash. Default CSS. So you are showing that we have a file in a CSS folder, and we also create a style in CSS.
So when you have your files loaded into the file, make sure to check in the browser that you don't have some errors, because then you probably typed some file path wrong. And then you have to check that you typed the exact same name here, the same path and everything.
Well, that's the way it's been designed. So nothing you can do. Or href, no. You cannot use source in the link, right?
Oh, is that wrong?
Or is it?
I'm always in doubt.
No, in the scripts for sure you cannot use the href, but in the link, can you use src?
I'm pretty sure this one has to be href, and this one is supposed to be source, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the question was, can we use src in the link? But I don't think you can do that.
I'm 90% sure you can't, but let's try it out.
And where did you just
It's not gonna yell at you.
No, that's a problem because HTML and CSS is just going to not tell you that you did something wrong. So can we continue, do you think?
I think we can slowly. Who still has problems?
Uh, is this the right JS file? So,
Yeah, it's just minimized, but it's
Where did it go?
okay, people. Let's try to copy paste some code from the project page.
I lost tab of my tabs.
Okay.
This was kind of what I wanted. I'm not sure if it's helping you, but let's see. So here we have the documentation telling us that things should look in a certain manner, right? We already did what he's asking us to do here. There. And we did this. I'm a little surprised that he is loading things in the head of the file. I don't think that's necessary. As long as we do this stuff here, we have to do that after this one is loaded. So let's see if we run into trouble. Then he tells us that we need to create HTML that looks like this.
So let's copy paste that, right?
So this is, I just take the stuff inside the body tag because I already have body
So
tags.
copy paste the HTML that he has on the page on his library and paste it in.
Put it before the script tag. So I put it here. From the GitHub page here. Did we share that on Slack?
Yes.
Okay. So on Slack, there's the GitHub repository here. And that's where you'll find the guide.
Try to refresh and see those CSS files.
Yeah. I'm confusing myself.
That doesn't seem like those much HTML.
Yeah.
CSS apply.
is it from Vue.js tab? Vue.js tab?
No, you just need to scroll down. Down. You need to scroll down. No, you need to scroll down. Here. Up. Here. Craft versus HTML. So you need to just copy div and yes.
Okay, so the style is not correctly linked. No, okay, that was empty, by the way.
Ah, okay.
Okay, that's not a lot of styling going on there. Maybe all the styling was actually in the demo file. Probably.
Let's see.
Yeah, okay. So,
Oh, but yeah, it's gonna just show and hide. That's not too bad. Okay.
yeah, I don't think it's too much of a problem.
Let's add the JavaScript is there, right?
Yep.
And if you press on tab 2, it's not gonna change?
No, but I didn't, oh yeah, that's the thing. I didn't do this part further down, no, further up. So there's
now,
this part
once you
here.
copied your HTML, you can copy paste the script thing that he has on his page.
And again, remember this one has to go below this one. So first we load the library. That's this tag here. Let me go full screen. First we load the library. Let's get the indentation right. And after that we initialize the script. So that's this code here. And you don't really need to understand what's going on here because the purpose today is just to show you that you can copy paste some JavaScript into your file and you can have it do magic stuff for you.
So let's see how this even works.
Oh yeah, it works. So when I press tab 1, it says I'm the first tab. When I press tab 2, I'm the second tab. I press tab 3, I'm the third tab.
Who can see that? Like this.
That's work.
Okay, for whom does it work already? 1, 2, 3 people. For those who work,
Can you see or look into your colleague next to and try to help him get this to work? Okay, or do you need some help or do you manage? Yeah, you need to paste that. Work? Yes, you need to copy this and paste this. Yeah, it looks right. So if you save it and go to Chrome, yes, and try to click on tab 2.
Script always
Try to inspect right click.
just before
Inspect go to console. So what is going on is that it cannot load your JavaScript file. So if you go back to, so you don't have, it's your folder is called JS, so you need to change that folder name. Yep, JS. Exactly. Hit enter. Go back to Chrome. Refresh. If you go back to your, you called your, you don't, so it needs to be source src slash js slash, like Zaki has on his source. So there is this src equals js slash.
Maybe we should just explain the difference going on here. So see, we use script tag 2 times, right? One time here and another time here, right? This one is referencing an external file. So it's telling us to look in the JS folder. And this one here, we're just embedding some JavaScript right into the file. That's actually not so good practice. Usually you should keep that in a separate file. It's kind of the same as we went up here and we did like style and we went like body and did some styling up here. That's also not the greatest practice in the world, but sometimes it's quick and easy to do it that way.
For whom it still doesn't work? One person, 2, 3.
I'll do it one by one.
But I'm thinking maybe we should present the exercise so we can get the rest of the class working on that.
Yes, and then maybe you can live code some tabs at least.
I think the demo.css tab is
Yeah, maybe just reference that. Use the demo for showing tabs.
I just copied into the style.
Yeah.
.css.
Yeah.
That's
Let's try that first. Okay.
That's a very good one.
So we told you not to copy the demo styles, but let's try copying them because then you will get the tabs. So we take the demo CSS.
People, copy the demo CSS. That's the next thing. Demo CSS, back in your library folder when you downloaded everything, there is demo.css.
So it's right
And
here.
just put it here, just next to the rest of your CSS files.
And when you've done that, you need to reference it in here as well. Oh, put it here.
Okay, so we'll just ask you in 3 seconds if that works for you or not. And then we can take it from there. So you need to move the demo CSS from the library that you downloaded to your folder, like you did with the rest of your files. So you need one more, demo CSS in here.
We need what?
What?
Sorry. So actually, I help you create a empty style file here.
But
That's another place you could put it.
Yeah.
But this one is supposed to be when you do the exercise now in a
That's
second.
good practice actually to
So.
have like the library styles in
Yeah.
separate folder, right?
Maybe it is. Okay.
Okay, who cannot see this? Raise your hand. One person, and the rest, I assume that everybody else can see it. Okay, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Did you move, if you go to your Chrome, first of all, and open that, and open Inspector, and open your console, and see what does it say. Okay, it cannot find CSS, default CSS. Can you go to your folder structure and see? Yeah, open VS Code. VS Code, you need to open VS Code. Oh, where's your CSS folder?
There's a lot of folders.
Okay, then I'll just need to check with the rest because your case is going to take a bit longer to solve because you need to copy all the files. Who has still problems running this?
Yeah, only the CSS.
Okay, so you just need to download the. Okay, great. Works for you? Anybody else got problems? Okay, so now you need to turn this. Can you go back to Slack? You need to turn this into this. That shouldn't be a big deal, right?
Yeah.
So this is not like this is something that first that you should be doing now until the rest of the class. Zaki will have a proper homework for you, right? At some point.
Yeah. But I haven't finished the files for your homework. So I will have to update you on Slack when that's finished. I'll finish it later today and send it out to you. And I'll clear out the original homework that's in the repository. So don't go home and do that homework right now. We'll update the homework because the homework that was originally there was designed for a class where we didn't do forms and stuff like that. And we realized learning about forms is extremely important. So
this is for you now, and first, what's it called? Still, we have over 25 minutes. I'd like you to change the stop navigation from black to at least give it some colors. So it looks more or less like this. I want to have 4 of those items. So I want to have hotels, flights, cars, and destinations. And I want to have each and every tab that just needs to have a sentence or two. And then once you have it, then you can start working on the forms. But first try to give it some colors and at least try to add 4 tabs. And see if you can make sense of the HTML structure that you've been given. So again, this is not a homework. This is something that you should be working on now. You can work on it at home, sure, but this is an extra thing. So if you feel courageous, go for it, but Zaki will have a proper homework for you. But as I said, first of all, 4 tabs here, proper color, and each of those tabs should have a sentence saying I'm tab 1, I'm tab 2, I'm tab 3, I'm tab 4. Heavy coding.
Now, can you make it in code pen? Can you make it in code pen?
I prefer, well, I guess this is just a class exercise.
We have to.
But you just did this on your local computer with the tabs. So just work on that one.
Yeah.
Proceed building that for real. That was
We'll
the
just
idea.
give you 2 more minutes. I think we just should start working around and take it case by case with whoever has that particular problem. Okay. So you need to create a CSS folder and JS folder in your project. And this, what you have in here, is a mess because you have week 2 inside of week 3 and okay, but you need to clean it up at some point. Then you need to go and create a folder. No, screw this. Start from scratch, clean, because this is bad. Close down everything, everything. Yes, just close it.
Yes. Now, if you go to your folder here, wherever it is, yes, where you have your project, your folder cannot be called new folder. Like if you don't get this right, then you'll never get the rest right. Who's struggling with making this work at all?
Or getting started.
Can you help?
Should we make the sign?
Yeah. So now you have 3, so now you just need to add 1 more and make them orange for now. Yeah, the code that you have already, like you have this HTML that you copy pasted, right? So you just need to add 1 more tab. First add 1 more tab, then try to make it orange. Yes. This, and where did you put your folder? This forms, where is it? This is also a pretty bad idea, but okay, I'll let you where to put this. But like you need to have like projects folder, then it needs to have a folder called week 01, week 02, week 03, and then each and every exercise we do, it needs a separate folder because otherwise it's just you'll never like figure it out. So what is inside the CSS?
Do you remember there were 2 different folders?
Okay, default demo. That's good. If you go back, what's inside JS? Okay, that's good. So if you open your Visual VS Code,
Where did you download the? Is it on the desktop or in the?
try to go back in here to your folder and then go 1 level up.
So there's
So back to the second one. And try to drag your, where's this folder? Forms. So try to drag it in over this icon. So she opens and opens.
Take that file.
Yes. And it didn't work or didn't. Try to press close for now. Close all this. No, those tabs. Or maybe you have something else. If you right click on this folder.
And then you have to go to HTML and update the file. Maybe copy the name of yours. Just press rename and copy the name. But
Let's do something else. First click, close all those things in here. You can close this one, yes.
So now you've got the right in there for the old file. I don't need it for a new file. So you still need JS. So don't delete that.
Okay.
Let's say
Then
copy
just
of
collapse this thing here. Try to find to go file. Open
Yes, it would be
folder.
JS because that's still.
And then find your forms. This one, I guess. And subfolder. And we will say, do you want? Oh, no, we don't want to do this. So that's okay. So now we should have a nice green structure. We did. Perfect. So now try to go to index.html.
Try it. Have a look at it.
You can actually close this. And your index.html is totally
Don't copy.
empty. So go back to Slack.
Pure.js.js. So you do .js.
No, first you need to start with Slack. Okay,
Okay,
so
so
now
now
you
you're
copy this.
Let's have a look.
Yeah, that's good. And then this.
Yeah, the next one was to copy the style and then CSS.
And try to open it.
Again, folder where you download things. I guess.
So now try to inspect. Or no, try to press tab 2. Okay, it works. So now if you go to the folder with the library that you downloaded from GitHub, it should be somewhere in the downloads maybe. Okay, yes.
So you'll
Then there's
that's your part here, and then you already have it.
CSS.
That means
We just pure CSS, yes.
CSS
Copy demo.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but I think so. Let's try that.
Demo. Copy this in the folder
Go to
where you are working.
Now you see the problem is you go to the top. problem is here you have two references. References.
Wait. Into a CSS file.
This one is empty.
Oh, you already have
Also
it. Okay. And go back to here to and in here, change style CSS to demo CSS.
Just have to reference demo CSS.
And save. And refresh your browser. So now the task is to turn this into this. So the task was first to actually add one more tab. So there's 4, and it says hotels, flights, cars, and destinations. And then we'll work from that. Who has made 4 tabs already?
Tabs 4
I mean,
tabs
but
are
it's
made.
not.
Yes, not formatted properly.
Okay, because
So we have to change the name.
you change the names and make it like first start with making this look exactly the same. So they're in one line, right? They're next to each other and they have a proper color. Once you have it, once you're done with the tabs, start adding the input or the form, the input fields or the form, whatever you want to call it, right? And that should keep you busy for the next 6 hours.
See down here, there's like stuff.
Who's got any problems so far?
There's a color, there's a body background, stuff like that.
Yes. Yes. So there is no right answer to this, like that I can give you in 3 seconds, because now you basically need to. I would suggest trying to like if you normally like when I see this kind of a problem, I would go back to the browser. In here, right click on one of those things, do inspect, and start to understand. Yeah, just turn off this responsive thing. So I would click this. Yes, select one of the tabs, maybe. Yes. Press this one, for example. Yep, just click. And I would start actually looking at the name they are using for the classes, for example, and what those classes mean. Like, okay, there's some width, 33% in here, right? So maybe this is something you would need to change since there are 4 elements, maybe that's 25, right? Maybe the next step would be to see, okay, how is this defined, the big one? And maybe it's better to make this with, like, I don't know, 100% wide or something, right? So you need to start adjusting the code that was given to you to make it look more or less like this, because it's not going to automatically adjust for you. You need to actually understand it and try to, adjust it. And there are easy things, like, it's easy to find like how this black thing is created, and then you can just change it to orange. And then it's, or one step closer. Reading other people's code, that's what I find challenging also quite often. So that's a good exercise, I guess. Yes?
If I click, this is the 4th button, right? It just goes out.
Maybe you have a problem with your HTML structure. And actually you do, because I can see that your 4th tab is still visible.
Yeah, I don't know why.
Because, for example, you didn't give it a class called tab page. Yes.
Could we also copy the same style that we have used in the previous event?
Whatever is easier for you to make it look more or less like this. So if copy pasting cuts it for you without making too much mess, go for it.
Yeah, it's working.
Yeah, see? So then maybe you should like make it a little bit wider. Maybe like center it on your page. And once you do that, you can actually start adding those input fields. And the background, there's no background. Yes?
You have to divide this
If you go back to your code, this is, where is the width? Because, yes? Try to go back to your browser. Right click on that box, like the outer box. This one. And let's see what's going on. Inspect. Just get rid of the responsive part. Just click that. No. Just turn off the responsive. And try to see what styles apply to this box, first of all. Try to inspect this box. This one. You need to find CSS that's responsible. This is a tab page. How do you know? You need to take this tool or press this one and hover on top of this. You need to press it. Yes, and then hover on top. Okay. Yes, press. And this is tab 3. Okay, so there's some diff. If you scroll up. So everything has some height. There is some width 100%. If you Zaki, can you actually, are you going to help somebody? Because maybe we can show how to make this wider. Because I cannot figure it out just by looking through your shoulder. Can you go back to those tabs, the example, the demo thingy?
Yep.
The question is, how do we make this wider? So if we look at the structure of this whole thing, those tabs should have max width.
Exactly.
So this is your problem. So we need to get rid of this one.
But then there is another problem here because that one goes up there, so we need to.
Then you need to take it one by one. But there's max width on tab page class. So
Yeah.
this is what's making it like, only 500 pixels. So maybe you need to make it 800 pixels or something. And I would say that UL, if you do UL display flex, that should also possibly maybe fix a couple of problems. I don't know, I'm just trying to, yep.
Yeah.
See, compiling in my head. Or browser rendering, actually. So this is one way to go about this. This is how I would think about like trying to adjust what we had before into what I shown you on the picture. I would do it step by step, right? And since we were talking about display flex before, and this one was just that short, I know that display flex usually takes the whole width of your element of the parent container. So I would first like take this UL here and change it to display flex. And then start actually coloring it. Then I would think, okay, how do I make these take the equal width of that what's it called, navigation area, right? And then once you have this, then I would think about, okay, how do I change the color of this? Once I have that, then I would start worrying about what's inside of that particular tab, and just do it like in small steps.
Right. Anyone who's stuck at the moment?
And this is also like a common scenario that we are actually trying to show you here, because sometimes you work with code that's written by others and you need to understand it before you can do any other fixes on it, or if you want to expand it.
Do we have some closing notes?
I'm not even going to show the mobile view, I guess.
Show what?
The mobile view for this looking exercise, I guess. This is
No, I think this is enough, for sure.
And there is a way to make those tabs take the same amount of space when you are using display flex. And it's not by saying width 33% or 25 actually. If you get rid of the width, shouldn't they actually adjust automatically? So if you go to LI,
to the tabs.
if you expand this one really well, and then go to LI and get rid of width,
Yeah, so they
they're
just
gonna take.
their own width, but
Then you need to do flex
Just
what?
justify, right?
I think so.
Flex, what's it called? Flex.
Yeah.
Grow? Is that one?
Let's see.
No, that's not justify. Flex.
Oh, isn't it flex grow 1?
I'm not sure. That's where we were before.
And this is because they might have also some other
Just
constraints.
Yes. What we can do is just, we are adding another tab
Hmm?
and we are using, giving each tab 33%, so we can give it 25%.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure.
For 4 tabs.
Yeah, but now we want to like make it. You can do that 25%.
Yeah.
And also the width is 500. If we can increase it to 800, and for this whole width.
Yes, there is a max width on that div that you need to get rid of.
Here.
Yes. Yeah, you haven't added the fourth one. That's why it's.
Yeah, sure. But,
Oh,
I see
know
now.
why, yes, there's max width. So it would have actually been alright if you get rid of max width here. Then they should. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so there's max width on both the UL and yeah, where was the other one? Or maybe I just reloaded. Maybe I just reloaded the page. I'm not sure. I'm just hacking in the browser.
All right, that looks somehow closer to the JPEG. So now this one has max width of 500, so you can actually get rid of the max width, and it's gonna grow. So yeah, as you might have already noticed, sometimes it's not that much about writing code, but actually understanding what's going on. And writing code is actually like 10% of your time, and 90% is debugging or inspecting or trying to plan ahead. So this is a very common scenario actually.
I think at my work, because we have so many systems that I have to talk together, I spend maybe, I don't know, less than 10% coding and a lot of time walking around to different people and trying to figure out how a different system works and figuring out what to build rather than building it.
Okay, closing notes, since we are getting closer to the end of the class. Can you go back to the Slack? So, if you feel heroic and if you feel brave enough, do this. I highly encourage you to do this.